All right. OK, can you go back one slide? Thanks. All right, thanks for joining us this afternoon in now sunny San Francisco. Hope you guys are having a good time at the summit. My name is Ajay Gandhi. I'm the VP of Product Marketing for Informatica Cloud. And we're excited to talk to you today about how Informatica works with AWS to help our customers power big data analytics. And also joining me today is Ron Lunassen, who heads up our cloud product management, and Al Lundberg, who is in charge of Vibe Data Stream. And they'll be talking more later in the presentation. So our agenda, we're going to give you a little overview of Informatica, specifically Informatica Cloud product line, because I'm not sure everyone knows. How many people in the audience are current Informatica customers? All right, cool. So they'll be good to give you a quick overview. Then we'll get into the customer use cases, the problems that we tend to work with customers on solving, and then specifically talk about our support for AWS database and big data services, RDS, Redshift, and Kinesis in particular. Then we'll do a deep dive into a demo, a hands-on demo, and give you some flavor of how we make that happen. Then Alan will present an overview of Vibe Data Stream, which I think you'll find very interesting for Amazon Kinesis. And then, of course, we'll be happy to take a lot of questions. So what is Informatica Cloud Platform? Well, we are the leader in cloud and hybrid IT integration. So if you're wondering what that means we help our customers connect data sources to applications. So if they have SAP or Oracle or a SQL Server or a MySQL database or a data warehouse, Salesforce and Workday and Zuora and NetSuite, and of course Redshift and RDS data sources, we connect those for people. And we connect them both in batch, ETL, and real-time integration scenarios. And there's a lot of other things we do. With some of that, I'll give you an overview today. But obviously, there's a ton more that I could tell you. And these are actually two recent Gartner and Forrester reports that came out in the last 2 months. In 2014, one is for hybrid integration, which refers to being able to integrate across on-premise and cloud applications and data sources. And we are obviously the leader there, as you can see from the big red arrow. And we're also a leader in the Gartner MQ for integration platform as a service, which is really a fully cloud-based offering that allows you to integrate, again, on-premise and cloud application data sources. So we're really excited to have industry validation of being the leader. And of course, the most important validation for us is our customers and what problems we can help solve for them. So as I'm sure most of you out there who are customers, hybrid IT architecture is the new normal for everyone, right? We used to be, 5, 6, 7 years ago, everything was on-premise. It was nicely and neatly behind your firewall, and everyone knew how to kind of upgrade their apps on 18-month to 24-month life cycles. Do security patches, and of course, integrate all those different applications together. In the last few years, the cloud has taken over, right? SaaS adoption, I think over 80% of companies have at least one SaaS app now, and the number is only growing. And what this created is a hybrid environment, where you've got a bunch of data and business processes now running in things like Salesforce and Workday, Concur, and other sources. And then, of course, you've got all your on-premise transactional systems that are still running the bulk of your business data. And then you've got new sources of data, whether it's social data like Twitter or Facebook, where your customers are starting to live and tell you about things they're interested in, or mobile devices, right, or sensors. And we've all kind of heard a lot of the Internet of Things. So all of this is driving new data sources that you need to bring into context with your existing on-premise and cloud business apps that you have. So hybrid IT has really become the new normal, and that's really the problem that we're trying to solve for our customers. So the Informatica Cloud Platform is not just about integration. Obviously, that's where most people start. I need to get data from Oracle into Redshift. I need to bring data from Salesforce into my on-premise data warehouse. I need to be able to do analytics on my Salesforce data or my Workday data. How do I do that? And that's really, cloud integration helps make that happen. But then as most customers mature, you need to do more than just integration. You also worry about test and dev environments. For example, in Salesforce, a lot of customers use sandboxes to do test and dev architecture before they roll it out into their production orgs. Well, we offer test data management specifically for those kind of use cases. So you can actually test and mask your data in real production scenarios before actually rolling it out to production in the cloud. And then, of course, as all this data starts permeating in the cloud, you want to make sure the data is high quality, it's accurate, it's verifiable, and it's not redundant. And so we offer data quality that plugs right into this platform as well. And then as you get more and more orgs, for example, many customers have multiple Salesforce orgs across their business units. How do you get a single view of your customer? How do you get a single view of your accounts? How do you get a single view of your geographies? You need to have master customer records to do that. So Cloud MDM is how we provide that for Salesforce customers. And then finally, it's not just about integrating data, but it's also integrating and automating processes, often in real time. So we offer cloud process automation to be able to do that. And the great thing is all of these work seamlessly across common tooling, common metadata layers, and are really designed to help customers as they evolve their maturity lifecycle in moving from full on-premise to that hybrid IT environment that I talked about. And you can see we have tons of great customers that are doing different things and multiple things with us across this maturity lifecycle of hybrid and cloud integration. And it's not just Salesforce or it's not just SAP. We have, customers have tons of different data sources out there, whether it's NetSuite, obviously AWS, there's still a lot of JD Edwards, there's still a lot of Oracle databases, there's lots of new things like LinkedIn and Workday. So we offer hundreds of pre-built connectors that plug right in. So you don't have to worry about point-to-point coding, you don't have to worry about manual integration, and you don't have to worry when APIs change. The connectors work automatically, and since everything's in the cloud, you get updated right away. I wanted to introduce a couple of new innovations. So for us, we're constantly innovating. You heard, if you were in Andy Jassy's keynote this morning, you heard about the pace of innovation that AWS is delivering to the market. We're also a cloud company with Informatica Cloud Platform, and we deliver a lot of innovation too. We have several major releases a year, typically spring, summer, and winter releases. We just released our spring release a few weeks ago and have a bunch of great innovations in that release. One of them is a full cloud designer. And this is designed to be able to design some of those integrations I talked about. Again, no coding. So if you're a hardcore developer who does integrations for a living, or a business user, you can now use the same tool to integrate advanced integrations. So think about things like an SAP product catalog being brought into Salesforce, or even simple integrations like your contact database with a flat file being brought into Salesforce. Both of those can be done in the same design environment, fully cloud-based, no infrastructure to manage, and everything is visual-based, right? Hardcore developers get a drag-and-drop palette, and business users like a SaaS admin or a Salesforce admin, they get a three-step wizard to be able to do their things. No coding, and everything is automatic. A really good innovation that we're excited about that we released this spring is something we call Vibe integration packages. Vibe is the term we give for the underlying engine that runs all of Informatica software, both in the cloud and on-premise. It allows our customers to seamlessly move in that hybrid environment from on-premise to cloud, reusing metadata rules, integration rules, and design parameters. And with Vibe, we've now created the ability so you can actually pre-build integrations that are seamless across the hybrid environment. So for example, if you wanted to upload data from an Oracle database to Amazon Redshift, a developer could design that workflow and turn it over to maybe an admin who's in charge of Redshift, who would then add in business parameters and run the integration. They wouldn't have to worry about all the integration underpinnings, the hardcore detailed development stuff that the developer did. They could just focus on the business parameters. If you think of the Salesforce example, a Salesforce admin could now decide to add custom fields to Salesforce, which is a pretty common occurrence in most Salesforce instances. And if some of those fields are populated from SAP, the integration will just work as a pre-built VIP for that instance. And you can get these VIPs from our marketplace. And the great thing is they work seamlessly on-premise and in the cloud across all of our products. That's just a quick overview of the Informatica Cloud Platform. You can come to informaticacloud.com to learn more, and of course, visit our booth. And I'm going to turn it over to Ron Lunassan, who's going to take you to the next session.
Thank you, Ajay. All right, so what I'd like to do before I actually jump into product demos is first describe at a high level some of the common use cases that our customers are actually seeing as they're moving into the cloud, and more specifically around cloud data services. So I'll describe these use cases in a bit more detail. I'll then go the next level down and start talking about our actual product capabilities and how it relates to AWS. And lastly, like I mentioned, I will be jumping into an actual live demo where I'll be moving data from RDS into Redshift. So we'll see us do that live here. All right, so let's talk about the three most common use cases that we're seeing our customers actually go through as they're moving into the cloud. Now, again, there seems to be a pretty good amount of hands raised when asked how many people here are Informatica customers. And I would bet that most of you are in the first bucket here. Traditional enterprise data warehouses are starting to be moved into the cloud in a very big way. Instead of people going off and adding to their Oracle database or buying a bigger Teradata machine, they really are looking to supplement the analytics that are being done on-premise and doing that in the cloud. So we're seeing that done in two ways. We're seeing some people just going off and getting RDS SQL Server or RDS Oracle and expanding their data warehouse that way because that's their data warehouse platform. But we are seeing the majority of people actually looking at Redshift for this use case. Now, the second use case, it's very common. Everybody's talking about big data today. And we do have lots of customers that are dealing with the big data challenge. And what they're really trying to do there is get more data than they've ever analyzed before and put it into an analytics platform. And they're looking for something that will scale and it's something that can still be easy to report on. So we're seeing, again, Redshift, very prominent in this space. And we're also seeing, this is where people are looking at things like EMR and Kinesis to potentially stream data real-time to do real-time analytics on your big data. The third primary use case is around just people that are truly cloud first. Software as a service companies, this is a no-brainer, right? Almost everything is out in the cloud, so why do anything in a traditional on-premise way? Let's go off and supplement everything that they have in the cloud. So those are the three primary use cases. Now, with all three, it's never, or very rarely, I should say, is it all or nothing. There's always some bit of on-premise and some bit of cloud, even in that last use case that I talked about. Some of the SaaS companies, unless they're a brand new company that was just created within the last 12 to 18 months, there's still maybe an Oracle ERP or some on-premise ERP system that still has some core data that needs to be shared with the cloud application. So even in those cases, integration is kind of the key to get this type of an environment to work. And that's where Informatica fits in. And when you talk about on-premise and cloud integration, there's all sorts of different areas around authentication and network and encryption. But where we focus, as Ajay mentioned, is on the data. We're about data integration. So as you have applications that are sitting there on-premise and you need to integrate that with the cloud, that's where we fit in. And there's really two primary ways that people are doing this today. And the first is just around extending the on-premise applications, like that data warehouse example, and supplementing that with the cloud. So what people are doing with Informatica Cloud in that case is they're potentially just taking actually cuts out of the data warehouse and loading it into Redshift, where they've got a new project, go off and grab this on-premise ERP system, you've got some new analytic projects, go off and do that inside of Redshift. Or you've got a hybrid type of an application. Maybe you've got the customer, the front end is all being driven by AWS services. But in order, let's say, you got the front end out there, but in order for the app to actually work, you need access to the financial systems that are on-premise. We help create that hybrid application where you're bringing together cloud and that on-premise data. All right, so specifically our offerings, as you probably would have guessed, because I kept talking about Redshift and RDS and Kinesis, that's our focus. So we have products specifically built to load into RDS and Redshift from a database services standpoint, and we have a new product that we're launching that's specifically built to load real-time streaming data into Kinesis. Now, for the folks that, again, raised their hand that they're Informatica customers, I'm going to be demoing Informatica Cloud, but we do have an on-premise connector for Redshift that's going to be made available as of this Saturday. So you don't have to just use our cloud product. If you are using Informatica on-premise for data warehousing today, you can go off and use the same tools that you have, leverage the same exact work that you've built, and now use the new connector for Redshift. Okay, but again, I'm going to demo Informatica Cloud because that's the one that's the easiest to use. Anyone here could sign up for a trial to go off and try this technology out. Now, the way that Informatica Cloud works is it is a true cloud offering. So step one, you go to Informatica Cloud, register for the trial, and then you sign in. Then you'll be prompted to do a one-time download of what we call our Vibe Secure Agent. This is our runtime engine that's based off of all that great IP that Informatica's had over the last 15 years around data integration is now made available to your cloud use cases. So we've turned just our runtime engine into a downloadable component. It's self-updating and self-upgrading. So once this is done, you never have to worry about that again. Now, the value of having this downloadable component is because it's now behind your firewall, you can actually get access, direct access to those on-premise data sources so that you can share that data with the cloud. No ports in the firewall need to be opened up. No security rules need to be changed. We're sitting there behind the firewall. We make an outbound connection over SSL to Informatica Cloud for communication. So what you end up doing, once you have all these signed in, downloaded the agent, you're going to use the user interface that I'll demo for you to build out your mapping logic, how the data moves from your on-premise or your RDS systems into Redshift. But from a runtime perspective, we're sending the instructions to the secure agent, which is then going off connecting directly to your data sources and directly to Redshift or RDS. What that means is the data, your business data, does not go to Informatica Cloud. That dotted line that's connecting 1 and 2, that's just metadata. It's the rules on how the data is going to be moved. The actual data itself is transferred directly from your premise to your cloud offering. Now, what powers all this, again, is that core Informatica IP that we've got. So we're going to be the best in class around performance, scalability. That's not going to be a problem for us. And although I'll be demoing Informatica Cloud, the same exact functionality as I mentioned is also available with our Informatica on-premise Power Center product. So even though I'm demoing this today, if you've got Power Center, the same functionality that you'll see in the demo you'll have access to that as well. Okay, so the demo scenario that I'm going to go through, I'm actually going to perform a Redshift Upsert. And the reason why I chose Upsert is, insert's one thing. You got to do a bunch of steps to do that. But Upsert, there is no native update call from an API standpoint. You actually have to do things like load into staging areas and so forth. So if you were to take a manual-based approach to do this, connect to your data, you got to create flat files, compress it, load into S3, load it into some staging areas, and then perform an update. Or, with Informatica Cloud, and we'll see this in the demo, you simply choose Upsert, connect your sources, map everything together, and simply go off and run it. All right, so again, to reiterate, we're going to go off in step 1, create the job. We will load into a staging area. Well, I'll just show it to you. All right, can we switch that over? Okay, so I've got my Chrome browser open, and here we see informaticacloud.com. So again, if anybody wants to try this out, free 30-day trial available to you, simply click on this button and sign up for an account. But I'm going to go in and go ahead and log in. And I'm going to go into our application area and choose data synchronization. And I'm going to simply create a new data synchronization task. Now, what we see here is a very simple 6-step wizard that performs real data integration. Step 1, you just give it a name. Step 2, where's the data coming from? Step 3, where am I loading it to? You can add data filters optionally in step 4, define how everything is mapped together in step 5, and then put it on a schedule in step 6. Is that better? Yep. All right, so I'm going to do an RDS to Redshift data load. And as I mentioned, I'm going to perform an Upsert. Moving on to step 2, we've got a bunch of connections that I've already pre-built. And I'm simply going to choose my RDS SQL server. And if we click into the details for this connection, you see here that we've got all the information that we have to connect, including just the host name for where my RDS instance is located. And I can now just go off and choose the object that I want to source data from. And we pick that, and we see a quick data preview to validate that that's the object that I want to read data from. Now, when I'm loading into Redshift, I just choose my Redshift connection. And if we take a look at the view, we're just doing standard AWS authentication, your access key, secret key. And what we're also asking you for is your Redshift node type and how many nodes are in your cluster. This is really important because we're just prompting you to specify these details, but from a performance standpoint at runtime, we'll actually use this information to optimize the data load. So if you have a 32-node cluster, we will actually auto-partition your target files and do a parallel load into Redshift for optimal performance. And again, we're able to scale with this because we're using the core Informatica Vibe engine to drive all this integration. Okay, so I'm connecting to my Redshift cluster, and I'm going to load into this person table that I've already created. But if you don't have a table that's out there, you can simply click on this Create Target button, and it'll actually go off and generate a schema that looks just like your source, and you can choose what fields you want to move over or exclude if you wanted to do that. Step 4 is an optional step. I'm going to skip this, but it's your standard data filters, only bring over these products or records created in this time frame. The magic is really here in step 5, especially for those of you that are familiar with Informatica on-premise but not Informatica Cloud. We've made integration very straightforward. Here we've already auto-mapped because we have name matching, so that's why you see that the business entity ID is being mapped using this field over here on the source. And if I go in and take a look at my expression calls, if I needed to do any sort of transformations, I have that available to me. So I can take a look at all the different functions that we've got. It's everything that you would expect from an integration product from an enterprise company. All right, so last step, my scheduling step. If I wanted to run this on a recurring basis, I can choose a schedule, or I can create a brand new schedule. So full functioning scheduler that's here, you run it whenever you need to. I'm just going to simply run this on demand. And I specify now my S3 bucket. So again, we are going to leverage all the best practices around the fastest and best way to load into Redshift. So we'll create a temporary staging file, compress it, load it into this S3 bucket, and then go ahead and make the copy commands over. So I choose my bucket and the location for my temporary staging files to be created. All right, so that's all I need to do. And I'm going to go ahead and hit save and run. So this is live. It's going off and connecting to my RDS system, and it's going to load the data into Redshift. This will take about 2 minutes. I'm not going to go through and just sit here and wait for that. So while that's running, let me show you what Ajay talked about a little earlier, which is our new cloud design capabilities. And here I've built a mapping that's a bit more complex. So the wizard's great if you're doing a very simple, straightforward data movement, data migration scenario. But if you've got some transformation capabilities, or if you've got something that's a little bit more complex that you need to show, that's what we've got here. So what I'm actually doing in this case is I'm going off and loading from an order table in RDS. I'm performing a heterogeneous join with a cloud object. This is actually the account object in Salesforce. I can perform and specify how I want to do that join. I've got a lookup capability that's out there. So in this case, it's a on-premise table. That's, you can't see that, but it will go off, and it's basically going to take the ID and give you the full product details. You can put some data filtering. We can perform formatting. And then I'm writing to 2 different Redshift targets. So this is what you would expect from a true integration solution, something that's a little bit more heavy duty, all available here in the cloud. All right, so I'm going to hit cancel, and that data load should be complete. So we'll take a look at the activity log. That's not quite complete. It's still running. Should be done here in another 30 seconds or so. It takes about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes for this to run. Now, the reason for that is we're actually doing there's some overhead that's involved to do the data load. This is going to be about 15,000 records. But once we're actually done the initialization, what we've actually seen in some of our production customers already is we've been able to load 3 million rows in about 7 minutes. So just this startup time is really what's causing this to run fairly slowly. It took about 2 minutes and 2 seconds to kick off a load of 15,000 rows. But once it gets going, it can be very fast, especially if you've got a fairly big Redshift cluster that's behind the scenes. All right, so with that, I think that's all I've got. So if we can go back to the slides, and Alan, if you'd like to talk about, she's going to be switching over here. Okay. And we should have some time for Q&A a little bit later, so if anybody has any questions about anything that I just showed you, we can take that at the end. You have to click through it.
Okay, great. Can everybody hear me? Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to be here and present to you, and we really appreciate your taking the time to visit this session in particular. It's a very exciting time. This show has grown in leaps and bounds. It's just a very interesting time. I've been around. I started by way of introduction in the artificial intelligence era. And that was an interesting time where we had very interesting applications developed, very good ROI, very interesting use cases. But if you think about it, what they were producing at that time was decisions, better decisions, based on what was happening in one's environment. It could be internal things they mapped. But the interesting thing to me now, in contrasting to these days, is a lot of the decisions created by AI systems were based on models of what they were thinking was happening in the environment at the time. Now, with the advent of commodity hardware, storage, the cloud, essentially what it's enabled is the ability to measure in the granular, down to the data point, down to the event, down to the machine data. So what's that's in essence enabled is better, more accurate decision making. And so we're living in a very, very exciting time. And I don't have a lot of time today to talk to you, so I can only sort of give you a taste of what we're introducing here today. But are people familiar with Kinesis and basic principles by show of hands? How it works? A little bit? Okay. All right, good. So what I'm going to do is start at the high level, and then I'll go down to some of the architectural principles underlying what I'm talking about today. Probably every presentation you've seen already talks about the Internet of Things and the fact that data has been proliferating like mad, and we have all these new data sources that we've never had to deal with before, particularly machine data. So what in essence is happening, the Internet of Things, it's opening a world of opportunities to you guys, the developers. Now, you've heard of the 3 V's, right? Velocity, variety, and volume of data, of events. I'd also like to add another V to that, and that's veracity. So just like the old systems, garbage in, garbage out, these types of systems, if they have data quality principles applied to them, you get better results. So again, what this enables us to measure down to the granular level, to the individual events, and then what we can do is put those together to look for patterns that have meaning to a business. It's like before an earthquake happens, there's usually a tremor that says something is about to happen. And you get enough of those, you can actually measure and kind of predict what's going to happen next. Interesting story. If you know hockey, probably some of you know hockey, but Wayne Gretzky is one of the best hockey players ever. And they asked him, what makes you so great? They called him the Great One. And I mean, he wasn't a physical specimen. He was about my height. He didn't have incredible skills, but what he had and what they asked him is, how do you do this? And he gave the answer, well, you know, I've been playing so long, I go to where the puck is going to be, where I think it's going to be, and most of the time, rather than not, it shows up there. So he's in the right place at the right time. And what the combination of Informatica and Vibe Data Stream gives you the ability to actually put those little tremors, the aftershocks or the pre-tremors, together and predict what's going to happen next. So you have all these sources that are happening. I also, again, wanted to kind of think about what's a nice visual to understand what's happening with Kinesis and Informatica Vibe Data Stream. So I got one visual. We didn't have a lot of money, so can you run the video so we can show this? Yeah, just click on the black screen. You'll see a little arrow come up toward the bottom. You can run the demo. Nope. Go up again. Click on the... Nope, nope, nope. Back. OK, click on the black screen, arrow.
you back to this.
Yeah, thanks. Great, perfect. So, made a video to show you what we're trying to do with these things. Now, this is a scene from a movie. That's me. We didn't have a lot of budget, right? So I had to act in it. Do you notice the resemblance? So who knows what that was? Beautiful Mind, right. Russell Crowe plays this professor. And this is one of his dreams, where he goes into the room, and there's these generals around the room, and he sees all this data coming in around him. He has no idea what's going on, but they know that Russell Crowe has the beautiful mind. He's going to figure it out, and he does. And it's one of those situations where it was really, really, really important information that was right under their noses. The enemy's landing coordinates, which he was able to discern. So, in essence, that's what we're doing. We're giving the ability to measure large amounts of data, machine data, all sorts of non-traditional sensors and events, look for patterns, and then, again, make decisions. They might be important, they might have high priority, they might be low priority. So, this introducing streaming collection through Vibe Data Stream. Again, sources are on the left-hand side. Vibe Data Stream is a publish and subscribe mechanism. That's the paradigm that it uses. It's ultra fast, ultra low latency. It's based on one of the fastest messaging products called Ultra Messaging that's out in the environment with some of the lowest latencies ever recorded. So it's based on that. Again, it collects that information and then feeds it to Kinesis, where Kinesis would do the processing. I have another graphic that kind of shows you exactly what's happening. On the left-hand side, there are your transactions, your documents, emails, social media, information, sentiment analysis, web logs, machine data, scientific sensors. Again, a whole wide variety that come with this out of the box. Now, once those are collected, they're fed in real time to Vibe Data Stream. You predefine patterns that are important to your business. And it could be a positive thing, like your customer is trending upwards, and it's time to give him the right offer because he's ready to buy, and you never would have known that. Or it can be negative, right? There's a fraudulent transaction, intrusion detection. There's a whole variety of cases that you predefine. You run it through Amazon Kinesis stream processing, and you detect the situation. And then the last piece, which I'm not really talking about here, but it's taking action. Once you discover the situation, you understand what it is and what you have to do, you can have a process queued up. You can have a rule system that writes an event condition action rule that will take advantage of the situation or stop the problem before it happens. So the 3 levels. Level 1, the first thing you have to do in developing this type of a system is you have to instrument for problems and opportunities. You define those important situations, right? Second level is reduce the time to information and time to decision. That's that pattern matching. We're looking for the pattern matching, the earthquakes, right? And then real-time analytics. And you can use, again, a variety of analytics tools. Maybe you have a favorite one. Again, it works with most of them. And then last level, this is where you have your KPIs, key performance indicators. That's the operational visibility. Sometimes you just want to be aware of what's happening in the environment. It's like the little red dashboard on your car. It says the oil's low, let's stop the car before everything burns up. So that's kind of a very, very quick look. 3 different areas and use cases with Kinesis and Informatica Vibe Data Stream together. The first is what I've been talking about, detecting those patterns, those important patterns. And again, this could be 3 different events that are happening in a certain time frame. So you can do temporal reasoning based on this. And it could be 3 different events that are important, that in a pattern in less than 5 milliseconds. Now that could be also 5 minutes, 5 weeks, 5 months, whatever you do. Exception monitoring, deviations from the norm. Sometimes the null events, the events that aren't happening, are just as important as those that are. For example, in a track and trace, let's say you're a FedEx and you have 6 million packages that are going to the airport. You're not interested in most of the 6 million. You're interested in the ones that didn't happen. In other words, get to the airport in 3 hours or whatever your SLA is for that. So null events And it's a very important concept. And then the last bit, process monitoring. Are your workflows operating properly? Now, let's say you have a level of loyalty for customers. You have platinum customers, silver, and bronze, right? Do you want to treat them the same? No. Maybe your systems are getting overwhelmed for your platinum customers. Maybe you want to borrow from some of the other customers or bandwidth. That elasticity idea of providing for your best customers better resources, better response times. So that's, again, process monitoring, SLAs, et cetera. I don't have time. I think I'm running out of time. But I did want to note something. Nathan Mars wrote a book. It's called Runaway Complexity in Big Data. He describes what he calls the Lambda architecture. If you're not familiar with it, very interesting concepts. And the basic idea is you have less important information, the batch layer. You also have a speed layer where you have real-time views. And the serving layer actually could represent a merged view of the two. So again, I can't go into a lot of detail. I just don't have the time. But if you have a chance, take a look at Lambda Architectures by Nathan Mars. So that's kind of that's all the time that I have today to talk to you. If you're able to come by the Informatica booth, we would really appreciate it. In summation, the Kinesis plus Informatica platform really enables this real-time operational intelligence. It augments BI and systems. So you take the best and the things that you learn from your business intelligence systems and then apply them in a real-time fashion. It combines lots of different areas that we've been talking about today, and you've been hearing some of the other breakouts. So data integration is one, event-driven architecture, messaging, publish and subscribe, and then access to all different types of data, sensor data, and machine data. And the combination gets you this, what we call real-time operational intelligence. So with that, I'd like to turn it back to my colleagues, and thank you very much for your time.
So we have about 10 minutes or so for Q&A. So does anybody have any questions right now? Yes, if you could actually step to the mic if you would. Or just go ahead and I'll repeat.
Do you mind just going to the mic? Thanks.
So I wanted to know where the credentials for the database are stored in the cloud version.
So the credentials are actually stored inside of Informatica Cloud by default. However, we do have a capability if you wanted to store all credentials outside, and it'll actually store it locally in a prepackaged database sitting next to the agent. So it doesn't have to be stored in the cloud if you don't want to. And everything is, of course, stored encrypted, so nothing's in plain text. Do you have a follow-up question? Okay. Anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah,
Yes,
go ahead.
please.
And also, come by the booth. We have a great booth, and we'll see you at the cocktails also.
Yeah, for this event streaming, I noticed OLTP was up there. Which databases do you support, and how do you do that?
Alan, for the event streaming.
Alan?
Yes.
The question was OLTP for VDS, OLTP support, which
Yes.
the answer is yes.
What do you support and how? Like how do you turn SQL into events?
Do you want to take that out?
Yeah, let's take that offline.
Okay, we'll have to take that offline. Sorry. Any other questions? Yes. So the question is, we're loading into S3, but can we actually load it direct? So right now, the best practice for best performance is still to go ahead and load into S3. There is an SSH capability where you can load into Redshift. However, we've been working with the product team, and the direction right now is still best performance, especially when you need to scale, is to do it through S3. We are working with the team, however, so if there's a faster way that we can do it direct, we will be looking into that. Other questions?
thank you very much. We'll be outside if you need to follow up. Of course, we'll be at the booth. Thanks a lot for your attention.